that it deserves to be a highest being. It deserves to be worshipped and not just admired. Right? So that I admire Bruce Springsteen, but I don't worship Bruce Springsteen. But if there's a God, then I should worship that God because his goodness so far transcends Springsteen's goodness as to be. Springsteen, from the point of view of the highest being, Springsteen's no better than I am. That's how high the highest being. It obliterates the distinction between Kling and Springsteen. Okay, so anyway, we're worried about existence, right? So we're saying, okay, look, wanton cruelty, no. Power, yeah. I mean, we want a highest being to have a certain amount of power. We want a highest being to have a certain amount of understanding. How much understanding would a highest being have to have? It would have to have as much as possible, right? As much as it was possible for a being to have. And so it would have to be omniscient, all-knowing. At least it would have to be omniscient just up to the point that might lead to paradox. And powerful just up to the point that might lead to paradox, right? There's the paradox about being all-powerful, right? Can he create a stone? Yeah, can he make a stone so big he can't move it, for example? Or can he make a donut so big he can't eat it? Or a hot dog so big he can't eat it? And, they come across as being just sort of, middle school playground sorts of puzzles, but they're actually deep fundamental problems for certain conceptions of what all power. Oh, here's a whole collection of nice expo writers.
You didn't see those about 10 minutes ago.
No, I don't. Mr. Epistemology.
They're all on, weren't they?
My colleague Wilkerson, Bill Wilkerson, came up to me the other day and said, "Well, we've gotten rid of the giant coffee pot. It's been an eyesore in the office for years now." That's it. And Mr. Epistemology. Okay, just ask my wife what I could ignore. She'll give you an earful there. Anyway, gosh, how was I going to get existence out of this? Okay, so now the question is, look, would something be a highest being if it failed to exist? Well, no, because if it had all these other good-making properties but failed to exist, then it wouldn't be as good as the same being if it existed. So, it's part of the very nature of the highest being. We got at it just by reflecting on the nature of the highest being, that the highest being contains existence as part of its essence, together with things like power, goodness, mercy, and all this other good stuff, right? Any good-making property God has it to the highest degree compatible with the avoidance of paradox, right? So that's how God's existence is supposed to be contained in his essence. He wouldn't be a highest being unless he existed. Yes?
It would seem to me that that's saying if it exists, it would have to exist.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of thinking.
Putting itself on a condition that it is self-contained if it's true.
Because what I was really trying to work on you there was a very, very interesting argument that's been used by a number of philosophers. It was first invented in the Western tradition by a guy named Anselm. It was put in a slightly different way by Descartes, and it's been formulated in a variety of different ways, and it's defended all the way down to the present day. It's called the ontological argument. And I think the objection that's been raised is a powerful one. And that is, look, there's two different ways of using the word existence. There's the sense in which we use existence to posit something. Say, it is. Right? Say, like an assumption. It exists. Right? Yeah, we might be wrong on the positive, but there's a way of saying it obtains in the world. It's there. And then there's existence as a sort of descriptive property. Right? There's the existence property. And And the objection, which I think is a very powerful one, says, look, you can't move from the one to the other. Right? What you're saying is that if there's a highest being, then he's got to have this particular property. That's not the same thing as existing or being. Right? So if this is a property, it's the sort of thing that a highest being would have to have, but it's still a further question whether such a being exists. And so I'm going to try a smooth move to get out of this problem, and I don't know whether it's going to work, but I've got a hunch that it might. And that's this. I think that's a powerful argument to the ontological argument. I think that's a powerful objection to the ontological argument. I don't think we can use considerations about the nature of God to show that he exists. But once we suppose that he exists, we can say that existence is part of his nature, that he couldn't have failed to exist, even though we can't use that fact about his nature to demonstrate his existence. I don't know if that works or not, but it seems like it's a pretty good move.
So if you could show that God existed at some point, he would have to exist at all times.
Well, yeah, if he ever exists, he always exists, because another one of his characteristics is going to be existing always, although even that's just a metaphor, right? Because if we take this picture of God seriously, the universe is supposed to include everything outside of God, so that it includes time as well. So that it isn't like God exists in time and then thinks to himself, what am I going to do today? That makes God conditional upon other things outside of himself that are equally as real as time. God creates time. So we have a good answer, where does time come from? God makes it. Charlotte?
Why is it necessary that God be omniscient?
Because he's a lot better if he knows more.
Are you thinking like about knowing everything? Be higher than every other?
Okay, so maybe if omniscience means knows all true propositions. Charlotte's point is, look, something could be really, really smart and not know all true propositions. In fact, some true propositions may not even be worth knowing. In fact, probably most true propositions aren't worth knowing, right? There's a true proposition right now about how many coins I have in my pocket, right? Or, I ride my bike to school in the morning, and so I load whatever I can carry into everything I want to take with me, I decided will fit in here. Well, gradually, it sort of gets full of stuff, and you shake it here. There's probably some coins down in the bottom of it. I actually fished a bunch of them out today, so there's probably not as many as there were. But there's some in there. There's a fact about how many coins are in there, but it's not probably something that's really worth knowing. For most people, it might be worth knowing in case I need to buy a battery on my way home. I wonder if I've got enough coins in my backpack to do it. But there are a lot of truths that really aren't worth knowing, and so something could be very, very knowledgeable without knowing all true propositions. So maybe a highest being doesn't have to be omniscient. Maybe it's enough that he be really, really knowledgeable. He knows all important propositions. If a proposition is at all important, he knows it. If it's not important, he doesn't know it, maybe. But, I'm not trying to be flip about it, but
Does he know which ones are important and which ones aren't?
And that's what's really good about God, is that he knows which ones are important. He knows which ones are important. And what are the ones that are important? Well, the most important ones are the ones that have to do, for example, with the fundamental principles of metaphysics. The ways in which we ought to conduct our inquiry, or the way in which anybody ought to conduct inquiry, and what sorts of ways are valuable to live. I mean, how should I organize my life in such a way that I maximize the value that I get